to the third part in Right to Life of Michigan's series, focusing on the dignity of life and the Hispanic community. I'm Tina Teifer, the Director of Multicultural Outreach for Right to Life of Michigan. And tonight we're going to talk about the man's place in the pro-life discussion. Should a man have a place in the pro-life discussion? Or is the decision about an unplanned pregnancy a woman's issue? Many men are very hesitant or just plain scared to speak up about the subject. They may feel it's not their place to say anything, or worse, that they'll say the wrong thing. Yet the man's voice is as important and maybe even more important than the woman's in the discussion. So let's talk about this. Joining me tonight are Edmund Miller and Gerardo Carrillo. And we are going to do this as a bilingual discussion tonight. So I only speak English, and I believe that Mr. Miller, you only speak English as well, correct?
More or less.
Okay. Well, Gerardo agreed to translate for us. So we thank you, Gerardo. We're going to say it in English and then ask you to translate for our Spanish-speaking viewers. Okay?
I'll try my best. I'll do as best as I can.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to introduce Mr. Miller. Edmund Miller teaches literature, theology, and humanities at Father Gabriel Richard High School in Ann Arbor. He has been a sidewalk counselor since 1986. He directs a Detroit pro-life ministry called Guadalupe Workers. Edmund and his wife, Monica, raised 3 children in their Michigan farmhouse. Welcome, Edmund, and thank you for being.
You're welcome.
So you've been a sidewalk counselor for 34 years. What exactly does that entail, and what prompted you to get out there that first time?
I never stopped to count the years, so when you said 34, it's in kind of a chilling effect down my spine there. What prompted me? Back in the 80s, the late 80s and early 90s was the rescue movement, for those who remember the rescue movement, when there were a lot of people getting arrested, hundreds and hundreds of people getting arrested by simply blocking the doors of the abortion clinics, and usually municipal citations, sometimes more than that. And I was involved in that to a great extent, but I saw the need to be a more permanent fixture, so to speak, and to be a more consistent presence in front of the abortion facilities. And so kind of tangential with, or parallel, I should say, to my involvement in the rescue movement, I began sidewalk counseling. And when my children were born, I devoted my time pretty much exclusively to the sidewalk counseling. And it's been very intense experience since I came to Michigan, and especially since I started sidewalk counseling in Detroit. But that's a whole another story. But I basically, why I do it, why I've been doing it for 34 years, is because I believe in the presence of the child, and I believe that the presence of the child has to be acknowledged, and the child needs to be loved. The child needs to be acknowledged as a human member of our community up until the final moment. And too many of the children are not so acknowledged and not so loved in that way. And so whether I'm effective or not as a sidewalk counselor, meaning whether there are, quote, turnaways or not, to me, just to be there is the most important thing.
To add to that, Tina, I would like to add that encountering, being there, what you do, Edmund, it's really important because of the encounter, being there with the women also the women as well as the child are very important. So
Thank you.
thank you for what you do. It's impressive being there. Being out there takes courage. Yeah, that's what we need. Brave men who does stand out for life and for caring for
Brave or
women and
crazy?
for both. I have been out. I have been outside and it's not easy. Estaba comentando. I'm gonna just quickly comment this on Spanish.
Sí.
El señor Miller ha estado por 34 años en este movimiento defendiendo la vida y él empezó en los años 80 cuando había un movimiento en el que muchos fueron arrestados al estar en las clínicas abortivas impidiendo la entrada a muchos y ahí es cuando empezó el señor Miller con su, pues yo lo llamaría con su carrera en este caminar sobre defender la vida y pues lo ha hecho porque él siente que es importante, el niño es muy importante, defender a los niños es importante y ha estado ahí para las personas. Ahora lo ha estado haciendo en las calles de Detroit, dando consejería en las calles.
Thank you. Okay, Gerardo, I'm going to introduce you now.
All right.
Okay, Gerardo Carrillo was born in Mexico City, Mexico, and he has one younger brother. He was raised a Catholic and has been active in the church as a teenager. He came to the United States at the age of 25. Gerardo is now a husband, father of 2 little boys. He and his family are parishioners of the National Shrine of the Little Flower Basilica, where they help in the different Hispanic ministries. Gerardo became more involved in the pro-life movement after attending several Right to Life of Michigan Vida Preciosa dinner events. For him, these were eye-opening and the start to his commitment to educate himself and share with the Hispanic community about the great gift of life. Thank you, Gerardo, again for joining us. Can you tell us why you have made pro-life work a priority in your busy life?
As I mentioned to Mr. Miller and you, Tina, I think it takes a lot of courage and a bravery to stand up for life. Not many men do it. And maybe it's because being in the comfort zone, I would say, or maybe being selfish and not thinking about women and children. But I made it a priority since I came to realize that defending life, we should all do that. We are called to protect everything that was created. We are men and we got created, and there's a reason for that. And so protecting life is one of the most valuable things, and I cannot express it, but it's part of my inner self that tells me you should do something. Try do as best as you can and as little as you can, but do something.
And I can attest that every time that we at Right to Life of Michigan have asked anything of Gerardo, he has never turned us down. So thank you for that. Can you answer in Spanish? Spanish speakers can understand.
Con mucho gusto. Pues ha sido una decisión después de mi esposa, que ha sido testigo para mí, acompañar e invitarme a eventos de Right to Life. Ahí fue cuando empecé a darme cuenta que defender la vida tiene que ser algo que todos los hombres debemos de hacer y todos los habitantes, ya que fuimos creados por una razón, tenemos un propósito en esta vida y todo comienza con la vida. Tenemos que defender la vida y pues ha sido un gran caminar en eso de defender la vida. Educarme es algo que es algo que tengo que hacer desde el principio, ¿no? Empezar por educarme para poder compartirlo. Eso toma coraje. No es sencillo, pero tenemos que empezar por algo sencillo, pero tenemos que hacer algo. Cualquier cosa pero es algo que tiene que estar en la mente de todos, salirse de las zonas de confort para defender la vida.
Thank you. So do either of you ever remember hearing about abortion as a teen or even before? If not, or if so, how do you think that affected your perception about it as you got older?
Gerardo, do you want to go?
Sure. I would say I didn't. I do not remember hearing about abortion when I was a teenager, but I do think if I had, I would have started earlier. Maybe today, as an example, I would be doing something as Mr. Miller's doing, something instead of having 3 years of being involved in the pro-life movement, or 3 or 4, I would have 10 or so. So it is important to talk to our young people and our teenagers about this, because if it is one of the most compelling and sad issues that in today's society, in today's world.
My first memory of it, my first awareness of it was when I was maybe 14 years old, and I grew up in the panhandle of Florida, and I grew up in a little village called Lloyd, and my father was actually considered kind of the patriarch of the village. My father was a PhD, so his title was Dr. Miller, but all the local residents thought he was a medical doctor. So they just came to him for advice and medical advice and life advice, and it was rather entertaining sometimes. But one young man, a friend of mine, came to Daddy once, and I remember the two of them in the parlor, and I overheard just bits of the conversation. But this young man, whose name was, we called him Pop Johnson, he wanted $200 from my father. And as I heard a little bit more of the conversation, I understood that he wanted $200 because he wanted to get an abortion for his girlfriend. And my father, of course, refused. But that would have been very soon after it was legalized in this country. And then, teenage life, and I was, I guess, as much of an airhead as most other teenage boys are. And then it came back to me, the whole thing came back to me, I guess, when I was in college. And I met a lot of pro-life people at Marquette University, and that's when I was kind of drawn more intimately into the work, and where I've been ever since.
Gerardo.
Sure. Voy a empezar contestando la pregunta por lo que dijo el señor Miller. Él dijo que escuchó por primera vez del aborto a los 14 años. Comentó que su papá, la gente acudía a él para pedirle consejo, y una vez que hubo un joven que le pidió dinero para realizar un aborto, y su padre se negó, y fue ahí cuando la primera vez que él escuchó acerca de el aborto, y a partir de ahí fue cuando empezó a conocer personas que están más en favor de la vida, y fue uno de los momentos en los que se empezó a involucrar en defender la vida. En cuanto a mí, realmente he sido muy bendecido. A mí no me ha tocado lidiar de primera mano con situaciones de aborto, pero la respuesta que doy es no escuché cuando era un adolescente acerca del aborto, pero si lo hubiera hecho, hubiese comenzado antes en este caminar de defender la vida, en vez de llevar 3 o 4 años estando activo defendiendo la vida, tendría ahorita 10 años o más. Y siento que es muy importante hablar sobre el aborto a nuestros jóvenes para que en vez de que como yo comiencen a los 20 años, que comiencen temprano a poner su granito de arena.
Thank you. What role does the biological father have in the pregnancy decisions regarding his unborn child? What legal rights does he have?
What legal rights does he have at this point, or should he have, or does he have?
What legal rights does he have? I don't think any that all people realize.
Nada. None. No legal rights.
Mm-hmm.
No, the world has created this little bubble around the mother, this bubble of isolation, and so legally, no, the man has no rights, and in most cases, I see the man feeling somewhat, well, not somewhat, feeling more or less entirely displaced from the whole decision. So, for example, in front of the abortion clinic, usually the men just sit in the car, sleeping, eating potato chips, and they are approached and they say, "I got nothing to do with this." And that's sad. That's tragic, and because they're right in many ways. Legally, they have nothing to do with it, and I think culturally too, they've been disconnected. So the swift response to that question is no, they have no legal rights, and in other ways they have very, very little influence, unless we have a different kind of man who forces the women into the abortion clinic, but that's a different story. So.
Right. El señor Miller comenta que el hombre no tiene legalmente palabras sobre una decisión así. Últimamente se ha creado como una burbuja alrededor de la mujer en el que pues sí, realmente se ha aislado y el hombre no tiene pues palabras sobre esto, ¿no? Es decisión de la mujer y pues, realmente es triste, ¿no? Porque en vez de que el hombre esté acompañando, pues es la mujer la que toma decisiones y hay veces que lo hace sola, ¿no? Y pues es cuando siento que el papel del hombre es importante en acompañar a las mujeres, puede ser a una hermana, a una prima, en realmente ofrecer apoyo, que es lo que necesitan, ¿no? En momentos tan difíciles como ese, ¿no? What I'm saying, Tina, is that there are times in which women need support from men in this type of decisions, and that's where we can put ourselves, accompany and give encouragement words. It's sad that women get to make a decision like this without men telling them not to, and that there are options, that we can seek for something, some help, some guidance, seek the truth, which is life is precious. Let's protect it. Let's fight for it. Not give up by killing. That is not acceptable.
That's right. And I think that sometimes men are programmed, just like women are programmed to say, my body, my choice. Men hear that they're supposed to say, well, it's your choice, it's your decision, I'll support you, whatever you decide. And that isn't support.
Right.
That's out. So it's just one of those things that men are programmed to say. So what about responsibility? Do you think that abortion gives men a way out, takes away their responsibility?
It's like taking the easy way out. It's never in my point of view, it's never an answer to something that takes responsibility. A man should always take responsibility for their actions. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, it starts before the abortion decision. It started before 1973. It started, I think, and if I may be so bold as to say, it kind of begins with what we call the contraceptive mentality. And by the contraceptive mentality, the marital relations between a man and a woman have already kind of been separated from the child. And that is the beginning of a very serious separation between the man and the woman together, because the three of them are in a bond of community. And if you separate the child from the embrace, the marital embrace of the man and the woman, then that marital embrace loses its purpose, its meaning. So many of the men that I meet, I'm sorry, Gerardo, that I'm giving you so much to translate, but many of the men están con muchas mujeres at the same time, at el mismo tiempo. And so they have many, well, not many, but sometimes they have several different families. And the welfare system has likewise displaced the man. So the problem is very, very old now in the United States. It's at least about 100 years old now. The roots of the problem, probably older. But essentially, yes, the man has been displaced. And in the Hispanic community, now we have the additional problems of, it hasn't been recent, but a year ago, a lot of the men were being deported and the women and the children are being left behind. So that was just once again another way in which the man was separated. So I guess to summarize all of this, so morally and culturally, the man has been separated. Legally, he's been separated. The state, the welfare system has, to a great extent, also separated him especially through the welfare system.
Aquí el señor Miller dice que el problema va muy atrás, con una mentalidad contraceptiva en la que la relación de un hombre y una mujer no se ve realmente como se debe y separa también al niño. Comenta que también el problema es que hay muchos hombres que tienen relaciones con muchas mujeres y en nuestra comunidad hispana los problemas también migratorios en los que la familia se ve separada y los hijos con las madres se quedan con. Entonces está como unido, ¿no? Y pues realmente el hombre ha sido relegado a una posición en la que no tiene como una palabra, ¿no? Pero yo digo que pues sí, realmente tiene que ver con el problema de que un hombre tiene que ser fiel, ¿no? a una mujer y realmente verla en el matrimonio, ¿no? En ponerse en el lugar en el que tomar más bien la responsabilidad de sus acciones, de sus actos, ser un hombre que vaya de acuerdo pues a las enseñanzas de respetar la vida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerardo. So men are, historically, they're providers. They want to be providers and they want to be problem solvers. Do you think some men might feel like it would be better to abort an unplanned child rather than wait to provide for him or her?
Many men have, they get into this mentality of, you know, a phrase that I hear in front of the abortion clinics often is, I got to take care of business. And so human life is just, it's part of their business world, and they want to deal with it efficiently and effectively. So if there's a problem, they want to cut out the problem, which means kill the child, unfortunately. So yes, there is that mentality of taking care of business and efficiency. On the other hand, there is a lot of fear among men because, quite frankly, they don't know how to be men anymore. And so again, at the abortion clinics, the way we will see this is in the expression of a great deal of anger and sometimes threats of violence towards us. And then you have your third kind of man who, again, he is a man who has fathered many children by several different mothers. And quite frankly, he does not want to pay the child support. And the abortion is, in his mind, that's an effective answer to that threat.
El señor Miller comenta que hay muchos hombres que se encuentran en las clínicas abortivas que pues realmente deciden tomar la salida fácil, ¿no? Es una mentalidad en la que el aborto es como una salida para el problema que tienen, porque realmente no quieren pagar el sustento del niño, lo cual es realmente no de un hombre que se dice hombre, porque pues el hombre necesita pues sí proteger y ayudar, no tomar la salida fácil. Era lo que comentaba sobre tomar responsabilidad de los actos. Uno actúa de alguna forma y tiene consecuencias lo que hace uno. Entonces, una consecuencia a embarazar a una mujer, pues debe de ser tomar responsabilidad sobre la mujer y sobre el niño y luchar juntos para dar una vida mejor, no para terminar la vida. Eso no es una solución y eso no es de hombres, ¿no?
Thank you. So as time has gone on, ultrasound and other technologies have made the humanity of the unborn clear. The impact of this is being felt by more and more men as repercussions of 47 years of legal abortion are being seen. some may not have confronted or even let themselves be aware that their child was killed or that they actually participated in the death of their own child. That can be a profound realization, and it often causes psychological, emotional, and spiritual upheaval. Have either of you witnessed post-abortion syndrome in a man?
I have not seen, I've seen what I would call near post. I have seen men whom we have met at the doors of the abortion facility and who were rescued, so to speak, at that last minute, and who now look at their child and they do have a grief, they do have a pain, they do have the trauma of realizing what they almost did to their child. I see that right now. The person coming to mind is I won't name him, but he's a man from Mexico that we have known for several years now, and his son is in elementary school and primary school now, and sometimes when his father looks at him and then looks at us, you see this intense sorrow pass over him. And he expresses and has expressed to us many different times gratitude, first of all, but also the keen awareness and the guilt did. So thank God he did not. But even coming that close left a trail of guilt in him. But frankly, in all the years that I've been doing this in Detroit, which has been, well, that's almost 20 years now that I've been in Detroit. You know, the men, the real men in real connection with the mothers that we have helped, and it's been hundreds of mothers. The real men I could count on probably one hand, or excuse me, two hands. I'll make it two hands. So I have seen men who had carried the guilt from what they almost did. I have not yet met the man in that post-abortion situation. No, I haven't.
El señor Miller comenta, conoció a un hombre de México que tiene un hijo y me parece que ve en él como cierta, ha comentado, han platicado y han visto varias veces esa tristeza en él y él ha comentado varias veces sobre esto. No estoy muy seguro qué fue lo que pasó, pero esto fue lo que comentó acerca de este señor de México, y el señor Miller no ha conocido a alguien que haya pasado. Puede contar con sus dos manos a personas que han sentido esto, ¿no? De el síndrome de postaborto. Yo solo me puedo imaginar lo que pudiera ser, ¿no? He sido testigo de alguien que ha pasado por perder un hijo, ¿no? por un aborto. No sé, se le dice, Tina, how is it called when instead of a provoked abortion?
Oh, a miscarriage.
A miscarriage. So, entonces, yo he sido testigo sobre esto y realmente es doloroso, ¿no? En un hombre, por todo lo que significa el haber pasado por eso y por el futuro, ¿no? Pensar bueno, si mi hijo hubiese nacido, ha de ser realmente doloroso, ¿no? Pasar por esto. Y yo creo que sí lo tuve yo la experiencia con alguien que lo vivió y puedo decir que toma mucha oración y mucho platicarlo para ir sanando. Es algo realmente doloroso y tanto para el hombre como para la mujer es un proceso el que se tiene que llevar para sanarlo. I'm just talking, Tina, about I had someone who had lost a child through a miscarriage, and it takes healing. It takes talking about it to heal, and that has been my experience. Only seeing a potential father that lost a child because of a miscarriage. So if I think about that, that was unintended. Comparing it through an abortion would carrying the burden of I did this plus the death of a child. It to my mindset, it's more of a burden, more that takes more healing, more.
So, and we know that women
Mhm.
have trouble talking after an abortion. We know that many times they don't face the fact that they are hurting from an abortion. They don't even recognize it themselves, but it comes out in physical, psychological symptoms, addictions, and things like that later on. And so we know that also the same things happen to men when they have those realizations. And men, you know, they don't talk about their feelings. They don't talk about these things. So I just want to point out that Rachel's Vineyard has healing ministries for both men and women. And if you go to rtl.org, you can find all sorts of help resources. If you are a man who is experiencing an unplanned pregnancy, right now you can find pregnancy help there. Post-abortion healing as well. Gerardo, I know that I left you one day for an entire day at a men's event. And when I came back to gather all my things, you told me that you had several conversations that day. Do you have anything that you can share that you learned from men that day that you can share with us tonight?
Sure. Well, I remember many Hispanic, it was in a Hispanic adult conference. And to me, it was great to see these dads willing to learn about, they were interested in the brochures and they wanted to share this with their kids. So to me, it was a great testimony of wanting their kids to be active, they were really interested in knowing the early stages of the pregnancy, how a baby grows in the womb and at what stage the heartbeat starts. So they were amazed, and then also with the how do you call them, Tina? The little I forgot the name of them.
The babies.
The model?
The models, yes. So they were even taking pictures with them, and that's a great way of doing something, like sharing. I care about life, and I take a picture and I share it. That's a start. So I saw a lot of men that step by the table were interested in that sort of thing and sharing that with their children too. That was a great testimony for me.
Very good, thank you. So
Tina, I'm gonna take just a second to talk about that in Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
and what you talked about, the resources of Rachel's Vineyard. Tina comentó que hay recursos se llama el viñedo de Raquel para hombres y mujeres. Es importante decirlo que son recursos para hombres, porque también el hombre necesita sanar cuando hay situaciones de aborto. RTL tiene también enlaces a estos recursos que pueden ser muy útiles para hombres que han pasado por situaciones en las que han perdido un hijo, ya sea de manera involuntaria, un aborto involuntario o un aborto provocado. Y también comenté sobre una vez que estuve participando en una mesa, en una conferencia de hombres, y fue un gran testimonio ver padres que estaban muy interesados en todos los papeles que Right to Life de Michigan tiene, y ellos los querían compartir con sus hijos. Estaban muy interesados en los modelos, se tomaban fotos con los modelos, y también estaban muy interesados en saber cómo es la fase de desarrollo del bebé en el vientre de la madre, saber a los cuántos semanas el corazón empieza a latir, o cuando empiezan los bebés a ver la luz. Y fue un gran testimonio para mí saber que estos hombres querían compartir con sus hijos, y es una forma de empezar a tomar acción en defender la vida.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the last thing we're going to talk about, do you have any advice? What would you say for men listening that want, how can we get more men to talk about this openly and to stand up for their own rights and to stand up for the women and the children in their lives?
Well, I would say that what would I say? I would encourage men to get rid of the mistaken notion that they have to prove their manhood by their actions, their deeds, that they have to drive a big truck and be efficient and be effective, and true manhood is absent without the company of true womanhood. So men need to, generally speaking, they need to find a home. They need to find a permanent relationship with the woman. They need to find this manly strength of their own love. They need to discover the strengths of their own love, because it is rich and it is immense. And there are all sorts of places that can be of assistance. I know that the pregnancy help centers are out there and primarily focused to the women, but we have many men also coming to the office of the Guadalupe workers, the office that we call Defensores de Mujeres. And I know that title would be a little off-putting to men, but nevertheless, many of the men have been brave enough to come and to come when alone, singly, when their mothers or their wives could not come because of illness or whatever reason, and they listen to the same talk that the women listen to. But they have the bravery to do that because they live in this relationship of love, and they have the courage that comes with it. So again, to just for the men to not try to find your manhood in the doing and in the exercise of strength, because that is not your real force. The way to create as a man is through the gift of his own love, the sacrificial gift of his love, and that is the most creative force for the man.
Wow, that was a beautiful. And Gerardo, you gonna repeat it in Spanish for us?
I'm gonna try it. It was really deep. El señor Miller comenta que el amor sacrificial y el amor que se tiene entre un hombre y una mujer, el hombre tiene que buscar una casa y no buscar su hombría en el tener, sino en sus actos, ¿no? En ese amor que se sacrifica, ¿no? Por el otro, es lo que me quedó, ¿no? El amor que se sacrifica por los demás. En eso radica la hombría de un hombre. Tina, can you repeat the question so I can answer it in Spanish?
Yes. So what would you say to men listening right now to encourage them to stand up for themselves and for the women in their lives and the potential children in their lives? What would you say to encourage?
¿Qué les diría para darles aliento a los hombres y a los que van a tener un hijo? Pues yo diría que para darles aliento es pues que realmente la vida lo vale. Todos pasamos por momentos difíciles, pero la vida pues en algún momento nos va a dar alegrías, en muchos momentos nos va a dar tristezas, pero tiene que empezar por la vida. No podemos terminarla y no saber que realmente alguien pudo haber tenido oportunidad de vivirla, ¿no? De pasar por esos momentos alegres, por esos momentos que pudieron haber sido difíciles. Una vida no siempre va a ser color de rosa, tiene sus dificultades, y yo diría que para dar aliento, pues tenemos que saber que tenemos que empezar por algo, y ese algo es la vida. Tenemos que cuidarla por eso mismo, no podemos coartarla y que se quede en una vida potencial, ¿no? Sino tenemos que alentar para que haya posibilidad de esas alegrías o de esas penas. Y me gustó mucho lo que comentó el señor Miller del amor sacrificial. Hay que, como hombre, hay muchas veces que nos encerramos en nosotros mismos, ¿no? Y tenemos que practicar ese amor hacia los demás, amor hacia nuestros hijos, hacia nuestra esposa. Y pues realmente toma coraje y toma ser un hombre, ¿no? Como lo decía el señor Miller, un hombre verdadero que habla por el amor que profesa hacia los demás, no por lo que tiene o por lo que hace, sino por el amor que tiene hacia los demás. Me gustó mucho esa parte que comentó el señor Miller.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Gracias.
Gracias, Edmund.
Thank you both so much for joining us tonight and for speaking out. I would like to mention that if anyone is interested in continuing this conversation, if they want to get in touch with either Gerardo or Mr. Miller, you can text my phone at 313-212-1326. And as I mentioned earlier, you can find so much information at rtl.org.